As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. Hey Team Healthy, welcome to another episode of Unbound. This is where I respond to questions that you send in to me, and it allows me to kind of get into some of the more personal details that you all have to contend with as you engage with those narcissistic people in your world. Now, one of the things that I admire about individuals who come onto the channel like this is they want to learn. That's why you're here. It's like, well, I know that there's some things in my world that are inappropriate or they create some strain and difficulty, and I want to figure out how I can get beyond that so that I don't stay stuck in all sorts of emotional reactions and dysfunctional behaviors. Now, the problem that you can have when you take that learning approach is you'll look around you and you'll think, well, I hope other individuals will also join me in learning about the narcissistic people in our world. And therein lies the rub, because there are some individuals who don't see through what you see. And there may be times when it's glaringly obvious that the narcissist is playing them like a fiddle, and you want to stand up and shout. But what do you do when you can see a narcissist's true patterns and other individuals don't? That's what we're going to get into here today. Now, I want to read the first question here that kind of gives a real straight up illustration of how this works. This individual writes in and says, there are multiple narcissists in my husband's family of origin. My husband and I have distanced ourselves and have strong boundaries to protect ourselves. Predictably, the narcissists have deceived other family members about their true nature. We've shared already some of our own negative experiences with narcissistic family members with our own adult children, but they still get drawn in by the charm and charisma of the narcissist. So you have this couple that now, if they have adult kids, it tells me they're getting on up there in age, kind of like me. But they've learned, okay, there's certain people that when we have family gatherings are going to be very difficult. And so we've even talked with our own adult kids about some of the strains and difficulties that are there. But I can just, as we're going through the day, I can just watch the narcissist charm that person, what's going on and why don't they see it, even though we've explained it. Now, there are multiple things that I think we need to be aware of when something like this happens. First, let's keep in mind when you're talking about narcissists, and many times the people that do this very thing can be covert narcissists, and that is you see a lot of what everybody else doesn't see behind the scenes. But these individuals are skilled. In fact, they make it a life goal to make positive, superficial impressions. They're not deep thinkers, most of them, but these narcissists, it's like, well, I know how to make a good impression, and they can tell funny stories. They can ask seemingly interested questions of other individuals. They can, just share all sorts of activities with them and seem kind of nice up front. And so you're dealing with somebody who knows how to set the table very nicely, shall we say. And then some of these individuals can be quite charming in the way that they relate with others. They can be masters, and this is an interesting one. They can be masters at painting themselves as victims when they're talking about problems. For example, you can have that narcissistic family member who's saying, last week I had such and such, it just fell apart, and I've got these people in my world that are just crazy idiots, and I don't know what to do with those people. And so they start telling a story about how somebody bumbled and messed up their day. When you're thinking, no, the fact is, you contribute much to some of the demise in these projects you're talking about, but you won't take responsibility, but you let everybody else take the fall, but other individuals don't see what you see. I mean, there's all sorts of skills they have in terms of hiding and covering up their dysfunction. Now, there's some other elements, though, that we want to watch for that may be going on with those family members who don't see what you see. And that is, first, many of these people who are getting pulled in by the narcissist don't realize what narcissistic supply is, and that they have become narcissistic supply. And when we talk about narcissistic supply, narcissists want people to feed them, just kind of like an addict. Give me affirmation and give me encouragement, or give me your cooperation. And these individuals who go along with the narcissist may be naturally pleasant people, and so they don't understand that there can be sinister reasons behind this. In addition, there are many individuals who just don't take the time to grapple with the more meaningful aspects of human nature. One of the things that I know I've done through literally my entire life, and I'm guessing that many of you have joined me in this, is I've become a student of human nature. And one of the things I notice is when somebody, for example, is repeatedly critical. Okay, somewhere underneath all of that is some buried anger. I mean, you don't criticize when you're feeling great about things. Some people do. Or it may be that you notice that some individuals just can't receive input very well. And my immediate reaction is, well, that spells fear. They're threatened by somebody else's input. The average Joe or Jane out there may not necessarily think like that, though. They may not be able to ascertain what's going on with that narcissist behavior and then determine, well, here's what that probably means. And as a result, they can be caught up in shallow thinking. Now, in your case, when I'm speaking to this person who wrote it in, when you say, well, I've already spoken to my other family members and said, it hasn't gone well. My father-in-law or whoever it might be, my sister-in-law or my brother-in-law is really difficult. You need to be careful. And you think you got through to these people you're speaking to, and then later on you find out that they're over there just chumming around with them like crazy. Sometimes a person has to get burned first before they can understand what it is you're trying to tell them. And that's kind of sad to say, but if the information you give them is intellectual only, then they may not have enough of an emotional skin in the game, if you will, that says, well, I can deal with it, and they haven't been hurt enough. And sometimes it's going to require them to be hurt before they can have that insight. One of the things I say is pain is one of the greatest stimulators of insight. And so they may not have had enough pain, perhaps like you have. And so in that case, it's like, well, I've told them, I've expressed my concerns, and now I'm going to wait. And then when the time comes where they finally see what I have been trying to tell them, then we can talk in a more substantial kind of way. So understand that not everybody has the same approach toward the narcissistic individuals you have, and you're going to have to let them catch up with you. Now, another person writes in. This individual says, when my narcissistic ex-friend made me look stupid in front of others, the people who witnessed it seemed to believe that I was actually stupid too. Will they ever be able to see through that person's bullying? When I read this for the first time, I thought of an illustration. I was in a social situation, and there's this one guy that was, and I just knew he had narcissism written all over him, just really self-impressed and overbearing. And he made a comment at his wife's expense. He said something to the effect of, yeah, when my wife takes on a project, she never does finish, and I wind up having to do it myself. You know how that goes. And it was a little micro-bullying kind of thing, and she was sitting there, and you could tell she was feeling embarrassed. The others kind of chuckled. It's like, yeah, we have that same thing in my house. And they kind of passed right over it. And I could tell that that woman was struggling. And basically, I was thinking, why would he need to elevate himself up at her expense? And unfortunately, not everybody thinks that way. But basically, this does tell us that bullies and critics chronically will look for things wrong in you for one major purpose. And that is, as long as they're focused on you, they don't have to focus on themselves. That narcissistic husband could have said something like, there are times when things don't get done in our house, and sometimes I have to take responsibility for my end of that too, because I don't always follow through on everything. In other words, he could have taken responsibility, but no, he put it on his wife. And these are individuals who are skilled in that small little way of making themselves be a victim at the other person's expense. They can do it with a smile on their face, and the people who are listening don't realize that they're being played in that kind of moment. I've had people say, I don't really know that it's accurate to say that narcissists are very insecure. Carter, you seem to repeat that often, that these are insecure people, because that guy, for example, that was belittling his wife in the social setting, he seemed to be a pretty confident kind of an individual. But let's keep in mind that narcissists are profoundly insecure. Healthy, secure people don't feel the need to belittle others to elevate themselves. Healthy and secure individuals don't fear being irrelevant. And that's what this guy was thinking. It's like, well, if there's a problem with that you see with me and my wife, I want you to know it's her problem, not me, because they don't want to think of themselves as being brushed off by other individuals. They certainly don't want to have vulnerability. All of that speaks of their hidden insecurity. They're afraid of what we refer to as their shadow self. And when I say shadow self, all of the stuff in their world, some positive, some negatives, that's just kind of part of their unfinished business. And so they put it off onto other individuals. They don't want to have to deal with all of that. So when another individual doesn't see it, my inclination is to say either A, they've got some hidden or latent narcissism themselves, and they're kind of vicariously playing along with that more obvious narcissist, or B, they haven't been burned enough, and it's hard to, it's kind of difficult to say. Maybe they're going to have that experience first, but maybe they haven't had the life experience that you've had, and their pain is not strong enough. But in the meantime, as you're able, go ahead and speak to these people that you have concerns with. Hey, I want you to see what I see. And maybe they'll pick up on it and say, thanks for the input. And maybe they'll think, well, you're being a little bit too paranoid. I don't know. But be willing to speak up when necessary, but then also be patient, and then wait your time. And when that person does finally see the light, then you can speak a little bit more fully about what you would see the better alternatives to be. In other words, people grow, people have insights at different timings, and at their own pace. And so keep that in mind. I just lost Gus on that one. So I hope that this gives you some good awareness of what might be out there. You're not alone, certainly, if this has happened with you. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that you can have an openness with people. And then as the timing is right, then you can go a little bit more deeply. But sometimes you'll have to be patient and wait for that timing to occur. Now, I want to thank you for allowing me to be on your journey with you. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do so. And again, I appreciate you allowing me to be in your world to address these kind of issues in a very real kind of way. Now, you know that I have been sponsored for years by the folks at BetterHelp.com. They're an online counseling, a therapy resource. When you're dealing with something like this, it may be that you'll have a need for something like that. We have a link below the video that will take you to the BetterHelp folks. You can answer a few questions and then select a therapist, and hopefully you could be matched up with somebody that can work with you through this in a very helpful and conducive kind of way. Now, I invite you to go to my website. You're going to see lots of resources on there. I have my courses. There are 4 of them that are very extensive. I put a lot of work into them. You can do them at your own pace. Each course has at least 25 teaching videos, handouts, and guided questions. Anger games about handling anger correctly. This is me about setting your boundaries. Free to be, finding yourself despite those controllers. Ready, set, connect, what healthy connections look like. We have my webinars that are 90-minute PowerPoint presentations, articles, my books. So we have lots of resources there. Now, let's keep in mind that there are times when you can see things that others don't. And it's fair game for you to talk with them about what you see, but then when they just don't seem to have the readiness to digest what you're telling them, stay there, stay with them as the need exists. And then time is probably going to reveal to them some of what you've noticed. But in the meantime, that's where you're going to need to practice your own boundaries. You can't do somebody else's thinking for them, but you can let them know that you're the kind of person that likes to think things through. And when the time comes that they're ready to find someone to join them in that, you're going to be available to them. I hope that you can do that. In the process, you can set yourself up as a steady person and one who is a giver and one who is able to live inside of peace.